Hey guys, today I wanted to go through the path array command. I was working on this project. I don't know that I've used the path array in the past, so I had to learn how to use it and thought it might be a helpful training video. So I'll go through that. You can see up here in your ribbon the array. If you hit the drop down, you got rectangular, path, and polar. So we'll start working on the path and I'll show you how I got to that. So let me freeze some stuff out of the way. And let's see. Oops, not that far. So let's take, we're going to take this spline. We should have a spline. This blue spline looks like it runs down the middle. So we're going to take that spline. We're going to take a post and another post, and we've grouped some of these pickets together. So let's do this. We're going to copy this, move it over here, and let's isolate that. So if I was going to array these, that's why they're kind of grouped together. And with this one's a little tricky because you have to think about it. It's not just, this is a pattern, so it's not just, hey, let's space these out. It's how's the pattern going to look. And so if we look back here, we know that we were able to get the pattern to land evenly at each section. You see each section where the post is, you have a full pattern on each side. Okay. On the rake, we ended up having to have a full pattern plus one picket to make it work. Okay, so it was a little bit different on the rake. But you got to think about that as you're doing this array. So it's a little bit different than maybe what a standard array might be. But let's look at this. So we've already got this kind of spaced off of this post where we want it. So let's see, from here to the edge of this picket is 3 7/8. Okay. We're going to go ahead and start the array right where this is. And so we want to trim this spline, and it won't trim through this 3D object. So I'm just going to draw a line and have it cross right where that starts, right there. And then now I can trim this spline. So now that array would start right where that one starts. And we could have it ends somewhere else. We can have it right at the post. I don't know that the ending really matters because we're going to play with it. So for these purposes, why don't I just stop it? Let's just put a line right here where it crosses that post. Okay, and then let me trim that out of the way. Okay, so we can now do our array command, which is this path array right here, path array, and it asks us to select the objects. So we want to array this, and it's going to select all three of them because it's a group. Hit spacebar, and it's going to select the curve that we want, which is this spline. I'm going to select on that. Okay. So one of the things that I noticed is that like some of these are getting not quite true to the radius. And I think, unless I'm wrong, I could, so this wasn't an associative array, so let me undo that real quick. So I'm going to do that again, and before I exit out, I'm going to say, here's my object, here's my path, and it's going to pull up this array. I'm going to click on associative so that it kind of groups those together so that I can play with them. Okay. And now I believe if I go in here and select base point, like remember I was seeing that these aren't really aligned. If I select base point and I come over here and select the center of this first object, I think that helps. Nope, didn't help. They're still off. So you can do that, and then we'll put that base point directly to there. In this case, it looks like it didn't help us any. So let's go back and do this one more time. So we're going to do array path, select the object, spacebar, select the path. Okay, make sure this is associative. And what I want to do is I want this to end up about the same as the other side. So this right now I have 1.6 from the face of my post to the face of that picket, and over here I had 3.8. So I want to shrink these up a little bit. So if I click on it again, you can see I'm at 13.3. Let's try, I don't know, 13.1. Let's see, what do we got here? That went too tight, I think. So you can see that now it's actually added another item. So that's, oh, well, that's because it's 12.1. Let me try 13.1. There we go, that's looking better. So now what do I have from face of post to here? I have 4.2, so it needs to be a little bit bigger than that. Let me check my array again. I'm at 13.1, let's go 13.15. Now what do I got? 3.7. That should be pretty close. What do we got over here? 3.8. I could probably live with that, okay? You could fine tune it a little bit if you need it. In this particular scenario, we're not going to fabricate off of this drawing. It's just a submittal. We'll fabricate in the field, so that ends up being close enough. So now you can see I have my pickets all laid out. Now this is all joined together because it's associative, so you can explode that if you need to. Just hit X and explode. The downside is now it's made each one of these an individual piece instead of a group, but it has created an array along that path. The other thing I had to do on this one is this array, which kind of comes up the rake here. So let's do the same thing. Let me take this, which I believe is a helix, and I'm going to take my first posts here, top and bottom post, and my first pattern. Let's go top view. Let's copy this over. We'll isolate that just so we can play with that. So I did the same thing here, where if I go to a top view, I wanted to trim out my this helix. So you can draw a line really anywhere for these purposes. Since we're not doing an exact spacing, we're going to be adjusting, and there might be a way to do that that I'm not aware of. So this is my novice method. So I'm going to cross this right here, which is really close to the center there. We're going to trim this off. Okay. So now we want to do the same thing. We want to array this, and if you've already got it cut and in the pitch and in the right to fit your rail and your cap, then it will array along that path. So if we do that again, do the same thing, array on the path, select our objects, select the path. Okay, we can see this isn't, oh shoot, I didn't, oh maybe I did. I'm still in the array command. I wasn't sure if I had that associative or not. Okay, so it is associative, they're all together, but we can see that, you know, this isn't working. We need a bigger space than this. And you can see it's 6 inches is the way they spaced it out. Let's go to a top view so we can see how far apart these are. We know on the last one it was 13.1. This one should be actually more because it's on a rake. So let's go 15 maybe. Okay, and now we know that we were spacing, let's look, from the center of this picket to the center of this picket is 4.4 inches. So what are we from the center of, this is where our pattern ended, this one to this one. So tell us if we're staying in code or not. That's 4.466, so that one's really close. But how did we end up here? Okay, so here, and you had already seen this when I showed you before, we ended up having to have an extra picket there. If we look at our space from the face of this to the face of the post, 2.7, that's a little tight. So I think we want to shrink this up a little bit. So we're at 15, what about 14.9? What does that give us? How far from here to here? 3.5, that's pretty close. What do these have in between them? 3.8. What did we have down here at the bottom? So this one was 3.4. So actually this 3.4 is really close to what this is. So we could call that good. So if we stop and look at it now, obviously there's more pickets there than I need. So I'd have to explode this and get rid of this one and get rid of this one. And now that's how I came up with that pattern. So we have one picket here. We ended up adding a picket here. So we had a double picket on either side. So we're talking about array, but we're also talking a little bit about your spacing to make patterns look correct. Okay, so that's how I was able to do a a path array. Did the same thing on both sides and did the same thing for each section at each one of these locations, keeping in mind that we want to keep the pattern as close as possible. So hope that was helpful, and maybe someone can critique and has some better ideas, and then we'll make a new video with some better ideas.